Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Leanne, and today I'm going to show you how to use a sublimation design on a mug using a Cricut Mug Press. And this is the design that we'll be using today. This is from my Etsy store. It's called it's called Sunflower Mom Life Messy Bun. But I will place a link in the description to my Etsy store. And first we'll go over everything we'll be using. We'll be using a sewing tape measure. You need something that's flexible. We'll be using some heat gloves. We'll also be using the Cricut mugs. They come in a 2-pack, and this is the 12-ounce size. You can use any sublimation mug though. I'm just using these because I bought a bundle that had a bunch of mugs in it. We'll also be using some heat tape. I'm using the blue heat tape. And I got this tape dispenser off of Amazon. I'll make sure that I place a link to that in the description. You'll need a lint roller. You also need something to trim the white edges off your design after you print it. I'm using the Cricut paper trimmer, or you can use scissors or whatever you have. But I just find the trimmer gets a cleaner line. And I've already printed out my design, and I mirrored the design. And all my designs come in 11-ounce and 12-ounce. And we also need some picture paper and alcohol and a microfiber cloth, or any lint-free cloth will work. Okay, now let me just take these out of the box so you can see how they come. And when you're taking them out of the box, be careful. Try to make sure that you don't touch the sides of the mug. Make sure that you just try to stay close to the handle. That'll minimize any fingerprints or oil that you get on the mug. Normally I wouldn't even touch the sides at all, but I will have to touch the sides today because I'll be measuring it to show you how to measure it. But if you've already measured your mug, you don't have to worry about that. Just like I said, just be careful, and that way you have less fingerprints. But again, this is the 12-ounce. But what I was saying earlier is, here in a minute we'll go inside a design program, and I'll show you how to resize the design to 12-ounce. But here I'm just taking my tape measure and holding the end at the very top and going to the very bottom, because I don't like any white space showing on my designs. And now, like I say, when you buy the design, it'll be 11-ounce, but we want to resize it to 12-ounce, so the design is going from top to bottom, and we don't want any white space at all. And this is going to be, we're going to resize it to 3.85. But like I said, I'm fixing to show you in another program how to resize it. Now we're going to measure the width of it. You don't really need to go all the way to the handles with your design if you're using the Cricut Mug Press, because it wouldn't really get it all the way. It wouldn't, the heat plate doesn't wrap all the way around it. So we're just going to do 8.75, which we're not really going to be changing that size in the program that I'm fixing to show you. All we're going to change is the height, so that it's, no white space showing at the top or bottom. So let's go ahead and go inside that program, and I'll show you how to resize it. Now, to resize the image, I'm using a free program called Silhouette Studio. It's completely free, and you don't have to own a Silhouette Cameo cutting machine to use this program. All you have to do is Google Silhouette Studio, download, and it'll take you where you need to be. But I'll also make sure I post a link to the download in the description, so just make sure to check there if you can't find it by Googling it. But to resize it, all you need to do is go to File, Open, and then go to wherever you have your program stored. I just have mine on the desktop for this tutorial, but if you have it in another folder, just go to whatever folder you have it in, or if you have it in downloads, you would go to downloads. But just click on the file, click OK. Now it's going to drop it in there, but we need to make sure that our media size is set. I've already set mine, but if you're just downloading the program or if you're using it for something else, it's not going to be set. So you just go over here to where on the right hand side where it says media size, and make sure you choose letter. I've already chosen mine, like I was saying, and my paper, sublimation paper, is 8.5 or 8.5 by 11. So, but if you notice, it's hanging off the paper right here. So what you need to do is go to the orientation and put it in landscape. So just click right there and it'll put it in landscape. That'll keep it from cropping when you print. If you don't fix that, it's going to crop your design and it's not going to be the right size. But to resize this image, normally the measurements would be up here, but we're not seeing the measurements yet because we haven't clicked on the design. So to make them pop up, you would just click on the design, and then you're going to get these controls that popped up. And then you're going to go up here and unlock it before we enter anything in. Just click that, and then we're just going to change the height to 3.85. And then hit return if you're on a Mac, or enter if you're on a PC. So now that we've resized this, we need to mirror the image. First, I want to show you something before we do that. Now I just resized this a tiny bit, but let's say you wanted to resize this to maybe like 6 inches. Maybe you're doing a shorter cup or something, but you wouldn't want to do that because it's going to distort it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Put in 6.0, hit enter. Oh, I put in too many zeros. But do you see how it distorted it? You do not want that. So let me get back out of this. This is only if you have tiny adjustments. Go to Command Z and it'll take it back to where we was at. But went too far back. Let's change that to 3.85. Hit return on a Mac or enter on a PC. Now we're going to mirror the image. Go up here to Object, Mirror, and then go over to Flip Horizontally. And now our image is mirrored. So now we're going to go over here to the print icon, and then hit Send to Printer. And then we have this screen that'll pop up, and you see how our image is in the area. If yours does not look like this, if it's hanging off the side or something, then that means that you didn't put it in landscape or something. But you would just go down here to where it says Print, choose your printer, and I'm using an Epson, so you would hit Epson, and then you would just, oh, one more thing, make sure that double-sided is turned off. I think by default it's on. I just downloaded, this is a new computer, and I just downloaded it to this computer for the tutorial. But you want to make sure that says off. And then you would just hit print, and then it'll send it to the printer. Okay, so now we're going to turn on our mug press and let it be heating up while we're getting everything ready. Okay, first I'm going to go ahead and wipe the mug down with some alcohol so it can be drying while we're getting everything else ready, while we're trimming the paper, because you want this to be dry. You don't want it to still be wet from the alcohol when you're taping the design on. Just make sure you get all the fingerprints. Just wipe it down real good. No, you don't want any fingerprints or oil on your mug. And just set that aside and let it dry. Okay, now we're going to trim around any white off the design. Let me just go ahead and move this back so that I don't burn myself, because that gets pretty hot. Okay, and when you're trimming your design, you want to get as close as you can to the design without cutting off any of the design. You don't want to cut into your design. So just be careful when you're cutting away the white space. And I find it helps to butt the paper all the way against the edge of the trimmer like I'm doing here. And then just kind of line up the edge of the design there in that little slot before you cut it helps too. Now we're going to cut off the edges of the design. Okay, so now we're going to tape the design to the mug. Whoops, I'm sorry. First, I almost skipped a step. Let's go ahead and use the lint roller on the mug. Make sure that there's no dust on the mug. I know we just wiped it down, but you never know. We might have some dust on the table, or if you have pet hair, who knows? It just never can be too sure. Just make sure that you go over it with the lint roller. You don't want any lint on your mug, because if you try to put the design on it and there's lint on the mug, when you sublimate it, it can show spots. But we're still waiting for the heat press to beep at us, and the button will turn green. But while we're waiting on that, we're going to finish taping up this mug. And I like to just kind of eyeball it to get it center. Make sure that there's no white showing at the top or bottom. And sometimes sitting it down on the table helps to help position it. And then we're going to go ahead and place one piece of tape on the design. And our mug press just beeped at us, and then the button turned green, meaning it's ready. But you place your first piece of tape, and then you put it back down on the table, and then you try to pull your design as tight as you can so that there's no air in there. Just make sure it's really snug. And then we're going to take another piece of tape and tape this side down. And then now we're going to tape up both edges real good. I always tape them down first before I start taping the top and bottom. we're just going to continue taping the design to make sure we get every inch of white space, or every inch of paper. We don't want any air getting in. Now, I watched a guy on YouTube. He used shrink wrap. I don't know if I think I may have mentioned that earlier in the video, but I think it'd be a lot easier than having to use all this tape. If you'd like I said, if you'd like to see a tutorial on that as well, leave me a comment down below and I'll make that tutorial with the shrink wrap. And if you've ever done mugs, it's pretty much the same thing as, putting the shrink wrap on the tumblers. But you would have to cut out some sections for the handle. But like I said, I can do a tutorial if y'all like to see a tutorial on that. But here we're just continue taping. And I'm using some really narrow tape. This tape is not the best for taping down mugs, but I bought some wider tape, but I couldn't find it. Here I'm going to go ahead and show you how to get tape out of this thing. You just turn the handle and it pre-cuts it for you. And I'm just placing it over on the side on my table. And I can do a tutorial on this too. I ordered me some wider tape since I couldn't find my other. And I'll do a tutorial on that too as well. So that way you can see how to load it. This thing's set in the box for like, I don't know, probably 6 months. Because I got it and I'm like, how do you put tape in it? But like I was saying, it gives you little pre-cut pieces. But if you don't want the pre-cut pieces like this, you can also put a bigger row off to the side, and it'll let you cut whatever length you want. Okay, so now that we've got our design almost taped up, once we get this taped up, we're going to add some butcher paper. But let's finish taping the rest of this. Like I said, this tape just is not wide enough. I'm struggling here getting it to go all the way down. I've got a piece that's kind of wanting to poke up right there, so I'm having to apply another small piece of tape. Now we're going to take the butcher paper and we're going to tape it on the outside. And this just protects the inside of our mug press. And we won't have to use as much tape on this, so we're just going to put maybe 2 pieces of tape on each side, just enough to hold it down to where it doesn't fall off what's in the mug press. And I kind of cut this one a little bit too big, but for the sake of the tutorial, I didn't want to have to trim it down anymore. But you just needed enough paper to cover where the design is. It doesn't really have to go from handle to handle, as long as it's covering where your sublimation design is at, if that makes sense. And I've got a little piece hanging off the bottom, so I'm just going to use my scissors and trim off that little bottom piece before I put it in the mug press. So now we're going to set this in the mug press, but first I'm going to go ahead and put my heat gloves on. It's really not necessary, but I just wanted to do it for the sake of the tutorial. Now you're just going to place it in your mug press like this, and then take the handle and scoot it over a little bit to the left to make sure that, all the design, the heat reaches all the design, if that makes sense. Now you're going to press down the handle, and now the light will go all the way across. It takes about 6 minutes for this part, but it will beep at you when it's done. So I'm going to stop the video, and I will be back as soon as this goes off and it's ready to come out. Okay, so the mug press just beeped at us, meaning it's ready. And you'll want to have something to set the mug on. And I'm going to go ahead and put my gloves back on real quick before I take this out. I usually use the heating pad, I think it's called, that comes with your Cricut heat press. I don't know where that's at. Anything, I mean, you could even use a towel or pot holder. I'm just going to use this hot pad. Just let it sit on it while it cools. So just lift the handle up and then take the mug out, and then you're going to set it, like I said, set it on this to let it cool. And it takes about 20 minutes to let it cool down completely. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, and I'll be back once it's ready. Okay, so now the mug has completely cooled off, so we're going to go ahead and start taking the paper off. Now, the reason I say to let it cool completely, I've seen some people in some groups that they didn't let theirs cool off, and it kind of messes up the design. It kind of like smears it, you know, so I don't know. I just think it's always best to let it cool completely. That's just the way I do it, you know, and I've seen other people set it down in like lukewarm water, but I don't know. I just think it's better just to let it sit, you know. It's kind of like a microwave when you're cooking food. You let it sit for a minute or so and it finished cooking. And I feel like it's the same way with the sublimation. I may be wrong, but, you know, it's still hot and it's still sitting there, and I feel like it's still processing. But anyways, here's the design. See how pretty it turned out? How vibrant. And like I said, I'll go ahead and link this design in the description. But let me know if you'd like me to do a second video. And that's all for this tutorial. Also, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.